Hey everyone, and welcome to an edition of the Interstellar Modeler. Well, since I'm in between projects, what I decided to do is to share some of my other models here with you that I have in my collection. And the one I'd like to start with is the Buck Rogers Starfighter. So what you see here, of course, is the Starfighter from the TV series Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. This is the fighter that the Earth Directorate used. If you're not familiar with the show or Buck Rogers in general, Buck Rogers is a space hero that is, at least in this version, an American astronaut. Gets blasted into space, and then he, by accident, ends up in suspended animation, and then he reawakens in the 20th century. And of course, he comes back to a post-apocalyptic Earth. There is a something called an Earth Directorate that is based in New Chicago, and he eventually joins up with them. And the Starfighter, again, is their main fighter, and that's what we see here. So I can say that I'm not a huge fan of the show. I think the best thing, really, in the show was the design of these Starfighters, because the show, well, kind of lacked a little bit in the writing department there. But you know, if you grew up watching this sort of stuff, you do have a fond place in your heart for this sort of stuff. And so this model was produced by a company called MPC. It was produced when the show was in production, and you can't really find them anymore. I happened to find this by luck at a Star Trek convention of all places. The guy was selling it for about 60 bucks, and I thought that was a bargain considering you can't really get a hold of this ship anymore. So I took it home and put it together, and this was the result here. The colors I used for the ship was camouflage gray by Testers, and I chose that color because the original studio model had an almond tone to it, or tint, and so I thought that the camouflage gray did a good job replicating that. And the panels are painted with Testers light gray, and then the engines are a blue-gray mixture that I came up with because pictures of the original studio model show that the engines had this sort of coloration here, so I decided to try to duplicate that. And for the most part, it was a pretty simple model to put together. There really is just the top and bottom half. There's the back panel. There, of course, are the engines, and then these fins that you have to put together here underneath the ship. The original decals were kind of yellowed, so I was luckily able to find them, and that's a great thing about the internet. I was able to find duplicates on federationmodels.com. And the ship, again, is very straightforward. You did have to hide some of the seams here along the fuselage and along the tails and so forth, but a fairly simple build. The one big inaccuracy is the cockpit. The cockpit is something that really leaves a lot to be desired. I've seen some versions of this ship being built online and did a fantastic job at duplicating the original cockpit, but I decided to leave this cockpit as it was, and the one thing I did search for was a pilot that I could put into the ship because the model did not come with one. Now, just by random chance, I was trying to search on eBay for a pilot that might fit into the ship, and guess what? I came across someone that produced a Starfighter pilot, and sure enough, when the pilot arrived, it had the uniform and the helmet and everything, so it turned out great. It pretty much fit into the model. I did have to shave it down a little bit just to squeeze it in there, but for the most part, it looks pretty decent. And of course, the model was detailed and weathered with pastels to darken it up a little bit and give it a little bit of character. And that was pretty much it. So this is one of the pieces I really enjoy having in my collection. It's something, again, you can't really easily find. They do make some resin kits that are fairly expensive, but you know, if you like the show and you like this ship, that's pretty much all you have available. But if you get a chance to get a hold of this kit, it's really a nice one to have in your collection. Like I said, I think if anything that came out of the show that still retains some coolness, if you will, it would be the Buck Rogers Starfighter. So next up is the NESA Protector from Galaxy Quest. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with this movie. It's a movie that came out in 1999, and it stars Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver and a few other people, and essentially it follows the exploits of a cast and crew of a ship that resembles Star Trek. And that's basically what it is. It's a parody of Star Trek Next Generation and original Star Trek series, essentially just the culture of Star Trek, if you will. And this is the ship that you see in the movie. The crew, of course, gets beamed up by some aliens who believe that the exploits of Galaxy Quest are a true thing. And this, of course, is the replica of the NESA Protector ship that they see on TV that they think is real. And they, of course, duplicate it down to the T. And Pegasus Models then came out with a kit a number of years ago, and that's what this is right here. So the model kit is fairly accurate. The ship comes with a detachable shuttle here, and there's one thing that I would do differently if you are going to build this model, because I think the kit is still available, is I would put a metal piece here and a magnet here so that you can easily just attach it to the hull, and that way it won't come off when you're displaying the kit. But again, for the most part, it is a fairly accurate kit. The one thing that I did have problems with was the underside of the model. This didn't quite go together as well as it could have, but I was able, luckily, to cover most of the defects here with putty, and so that way you don't see much of a seam there. But it was a bit of a challenge to kind of get that to fit in there. That is the one thing that stands out in my memory, anyway, of building this kit. Paint scheme is pretty simple. The paint was just a white color that I used, just basic white, and then some light grays here for the engine coverings that you see here, or the intakes. And other than that, it again, it's a pretty easy model to put together, and if you like this movie, it's just another interesting piece to add to your collection. So that is the NESA Protector from Galaxy Quest. Now what we have here next is the War of the Worlds Martian ship. This is from the 1950s George Pal movie. And this particular design differs from the Martian ships that were described in the original H.G. Wells novel. Those ships kind of look like what we saw in the Tom Cruise movie that was made not too long ago. They were these huge towering ships with legs that would allow them to walk across the land. And in the 1950s, something like that would have been terribly expensive to produce. So what we have here is a version that floats in the air, and it basically has 3 beams of light that come down from the ship that are supposed to be representative of those legs. This model was produced by Pegasus Models, measures about 10 inches in width, and a pretty accurate version of the ship. Not very complicated to put together. Remember, there's the upper and lower half, and of course this neck and eye here that protrudes from the main body. You did have to hide a few of the seams there, but for the most part it was a pretty simple model to put together. The color I used here was from Krylon Paints. It's a copper color. And the one thing I would advise, as with any metallic paint, or just painting in general really, is you want to give the model ample time to dry. Sometimes you're tempted to give it just a few hours, but I actually gave this about a day to dry completely, and that way I avoided any fingerprints. So for many years I actually did want a model of this ship, and I was really excited when Pegasus Models did come out with one, and it's really nice to have something like this in your collection. So again, this is the Martian ship from the 1950s War of the Worlds. And keeping with the retro theme here, I'm going to show you now the Mercury 9 from Pegasus Hobbies. Now this particular rocket does not come from any movie or TV show. It's just one of these rockets that reflect the designs of ships that we used to see in the 1950s. So a very retro look, if you will. And that is what actually caught my eye about this kit and really prompted me to buy it. This is one of these things that has a very classic design, classic look to it, if you watch some of those old movies, you'll see that many of the rockets used to look this way. So the model is nicely detailed. It comes with basically 2 stages. You have the upper rocket here and then the lower stage section. It also comes with these wings that you have to put together along with these pieces that you see here on the sides of the ship itself. The model also includes a launch tower that you see here, and it would lend itself pretty well to lighting. Again, I wasn't into lighting my models at the time that I built this, but I've seen some versions that have been lit up. It looks quite nice. So you can imagine you can open up some of these windows here and put some LEDs in there, along with LEDs into these engine pieces here as well. The model measures about 14 inches in height, and I just basically used Tester's aluminum metallizer along with the titanium paints to darken these other panels that you see here. The model also includes a display base, which really is the launch pad, and when you put the 2 pieces together, it's a unique piece to display in your collection. Alright, so that pretty much concludes this video here. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of these models, and if you have any questions about any of them, you can certainly email me. And as always, I do appreciate you watching, so I will see you in the next video. Take care.